one of my favorite topics that I learned in biological psychology from 2 semesters ago was dopamine. Because, dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter in your brain. That,
I like it lots.
yes, it sends a transmission to your brain on the reward system. And then, for example, you play video games, you go shopping, you have sex. All of these things. Yeah, you drink. It gives you dopamine, right? Now, when it comes to...
Explains my lifestyle.
Well, when it comes to relationships, this is what I found very, very interesting when our professor gave the lecture on dopamine. Because when you think about a relationship that you've been in, the first 7 months is like pure bliss, right? Because you have those rose-colored glasses and you're like, I'm so in love, and you have the butterfly feeling and you're like, oh my God. But after 7 months, that feeling starts to slowly subside. But it's not until the 2-year mark that you become complacent and you're like, oh, okay. And then if the love fades after the 2-year mark, you start to find somebody else. Now, what's interesting about learning this lesson, and why are you laughing? What's so funny? Go ahead, tell me.
I've never had a relationship last 7 months.
Last 7 months?
Nope.
Well, what I found very interesting about this lecture is that when I was so interested and intrigued by this topic that I wrote on a piece of paper all of my serious relationship, my serious long-term relationships, right? And I looked at all of them and I put how long I had been with each partner. The majority of my relationships didn't go past 2 years. Some only lasted 1.5 years. With my longest relationship being 5 years and this current relationship having been 4. Now, my 5-year relationship, we amicably split because it was like, it got to a point where we also had an open relationship. So it was not conventional by any means. And I think it was one of those things where it just kind of faded out because of that. And like, as much as I don't want to admit like I had anything to do with that, it was because in his words, he was like, I want to make you free. Because I think he really secretly did not like being in an open relationship with me, especially because he had he could do whatever he wanted, but he wouldn't. He was like, I don't feel comfortable unless you're there. So like we had threesomes and foursomes and stuff like that, but like he would never, I was like, oh, my girlfriend wants to fuck you. Like he was in a band, so he would go on tour. So he was like, oh, I'm going to be in San Francisco and I'm from up north. So I was like, oh, my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend that I was in a living relationship with, like the first girlfriend that I was in love with. I was like, we shared everything together. So I was like, hey, my ex-girlfriend wants to fuck you. Like, you should hit her up. Gave him the fucking green light, planned it with her and everything. And then he fucking chickened out and was like, I just didn't feel comfortable. So that was kind of like the basis of our relationship. And so like we were together for 5 years, but at the end he was just like, it was just like an amicable thing. Like, oh, like let's just be friends. And we're still friends to this day. But when I looked at my past relationships, like beyond that, I'm like, wow, 2 years, 1.5 years. And when I look at the specifics to those relationships, I also got bored after 2 years and was like, time to go. You know what I mean? So I feel like, when I'm looking at my current relationship, like we've been together for 4 years and it's like so different compared to my other, I'm like, oh, it must be real, but that's interesting. The whole dopamine thing, first 7 months, pure bliss. But then
I love that you just illustrated scientifically that I'm just a dopamine junkie.
Yeah. Like nothing wrong with that, but like,
it's like, oh, the dopamine's starting to slow down. Matt's out.
Well, and that's what it is too. I thought that was so fascinating when she gave the lecture specific to that. She was like, when you look at relationships, man, first 7 months, it's all fucking fantastic. It's wonderful. You feel great. You love that person, whatever. But then after 7 months, it starts to kind of slowly fade. And then you are no longer getting the dopamine that you crave. But then usually at the 2-year mark, that's when you really know that like...
You've really bonded.
Yeah. And it's like at 2 years, it's either, oh, I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. Or if it's real... like, oh, I still feel the same way. Like when I look at my boyfriend now, I still feel the same way about him I did 2 years ago, even in 3 years ago, you know what I mean? So it's like when I look at my other relationships, I can like with confidence be like, oh yeah, I remembered like 1.5 years in, 2-year mark. I was like, no, fuck this dude. I'm done. Like, you know what I mean? So it's very interesting. Dopamine, man.
I love that science has just backed up my my claim of being a professional honeymooner.
It's funny. Like 7 months? Really? Like 7 months? You're like, oh, that's it.
6.5 like or so.
Yeah. You're just a dopamine junkie.
Yeah, just like I've referred to myself in the past as a professional honeymooner. Like the minute the honeymoon phase is over, I'm out.
And that's it. Because that's actually another word that she was saying. Like, yeah, it's like the honeymoon. That's exactly what my professor said. She said, first 7 months is more like the honeymoon phase of the relationship where you're like so in love and this and that and da-da-da. So yeah, you're like a dopamine junkie when it comes to relationships.
In a surprise to no one.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. You're really bad about delayed gratification. You love video games, drinking, shitty food, adventuring. No, couldn't be a dopamine junkie. Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
That's really funny. I'm glad we discovered this about you.
I mean, I think we already knew. I think we're just quantifying it in a scientific method.
Now, I'm glad we confirmed it scientifically. Let me rephrase. Yeah.
There's science behind my bad behavior. Ladies, it wasn't you. It wasn't personal. It's my brain chemistries.
Yeah, it is. It's all up here, man. All in there.
You got to figure out a way to make my dopamine fire better.
Oh, shit.